Hello and greetings. This is Train Time, the podcast, and it really is train time, even here in the United States. I'm Karen Christensen, and I started the Train Campaign, a project of the Barrington Institute, in 2011. I began recording interviews with politicians and train activists in 2017, most in the U.S., but sometimes looking to projects in other parts of the world. I hope you'll subscribe to Train Time and also send me your questions and suggestions. And visit our YouTube channel, Train Campaign, for some great interviews and amazing historical footage. Matt, long time no see.
Long time no see. What's up, Karen?
What's up? All right, in our last show, we had a tour. Matt gave us a bird's eye view of his trip around New England. So we talked a lot about the commuter trains and the Amtrak trains, and you had a link to his article with lots of photos and his train ratings as well to go with that. So Matt and I thought we should also talk about train travel elsewhere. And so I thought I'd start, you were talking, what you made me think of is you're talking about the train. Which train had tables? It was the Shoreline.
Shoreline East. Yeah, that was the
Shoreline
best.
East.
So I mean, like, I feel like people I've spoken to, and I know you've written this in England. I know that that's probably more of the norm. Is that true?
It's really common, actually. Yeah, when you said that, I thought, oh God, yeah, we don't have those here. Because yeah, it's like super common on, not so much, I would say, on the lines that service more commuters, but you just would never be surprised to see
Yeah,
um, to see
more
those, and
common.
to see people getting on trains with food, with meals, and of course,
Mhm,
if you have a table, it's so much easier. Or you see people playing cards.
mhm.
It's
It
um,
definitely opens the possibilities for something other than just, "I'm sitting here to get home," or, "I'm getting to work." I've taken,
yeah,
the commuter line from New York to Norwalk and back doesn't have tables, and I've been that guy with a pizza box, eating pizza, like, holding it and stuff, so
yeah.
which is, like, a whole other thing, so it's different elsewhere, huh?
Yeah, and I have never had the pleasure of traveling by train in Europe, in places where people really bundle on with their bags, their huge picnic baskets. I should collect. I've read in books. I'm like, I wanna be there,
I
where people
know.
are just pulling out m masses of food and really partying on the
Oh, man,
train.
that sounds like so much fun.
Right. And I think in lots of parts of the world, it's you know, travel becomes a very social activity. People
Mhm.
kind of pack in, and there's food. Sometimes apparently there are chickens and things. And I just, I've read so much about those experiences. I've not
Mhm.
really had that. One of the things that I've reminded because I read quite a few old novels, and I'm reminded of the different shapes, the different arrangements that there are. Compartments are very common on older English trains, and, that would hold maybe probably 6 people in benches facing.
Mhm.
So you'd be 6 or 8 people facing one another, but you'd
Yeah.
be close, and, sometimes if you're really English and really, you wouldn't speak to people. But those also sometimes people would, get into conversation.
Mhm.
And I certainly had that. I remember one of those compartments in France from Paris to the coast where it really kind of was like and that was more, we didn't, unfortunately, they didn't pull out food, but it was like we were crammed in with all these older French women with masses of bags. They probably had good stuff in there too.
Yeah.
Uh,
How do you say, "Can I have some?" in French?
right. But, one trip I wanted to mention was a trip I took recently, and a sort of bit of a test like yours. Sometimes when I've gone to England, which, before the pandemic, was going once or twice a year
Mhm.
um, for research and work, and as well as to see friends. And I did rent a car sometimes because I needed to get to around quickly, and I would
Mhm.
sort of race around the country to sort of odd corners. But I took the train whenever I could. I remember one time I was planning to go, and I'd been up north and I was going to spend the night in London and then go down to the far southwest to Cornwall
Mhm.
to interview someone. And
So,
and
like,
there was some
Devon
delay.
or, like, Cornwall or wherever that is? Like, yeah, I'm just, like, in my mind
Cornwall is
picturing it.
Cornwall's at the way at the tip. I was going to Penzance, way at the
Okay,
tip,
cool. Oh,
southwestern tip. So I was
yeah,
going down from the north of England to London, and then I was going to go out.
yeah.
And there was some delay with the train up north. And so I went to the office, sort of on the platform. There were some train guys in
Mhm.
a little office, and I explained my predicament. And they said, "Well, ma'am," or love, they probably were in the north of
Yeah.
England. They said, "Well, love, it's better skip that hotel in London and just, go down, book yourself on the sleeper tonight. You'll get
Mhm.
in late enough, catch the sleeper at 11 or something. Take the sleeper, which is called the something Riviera.
Mhm.
Um, take the sleeper down to Cornwall rather than go into London and catch."
Go back
And
home
so
and
I
try to
I
do it the next day.
rebooked. So I
Uh-huh.
saved, so I didn't have the hotel, and the train that worked perfectly, and so I had
Mhm.
a sleeper train, which is a real delight, and I wouldn't have thought of it. I think there are more chances to take a sleeper in Europe than an American might realize. You might not look for that,
No, totally not.
um,
I mean, like,
and
in
it's
just
great.
like, here in, like, in New York with the Metro North, I know you've got, like, the trains run until about 1 in the morning, 1 or 2 maybe, and then they stop, and then they start up again really early, so
Yeah.
there's no proper sleeper. There's no, like, get on, take a nap, and you'll wake up at your
Oh, and this is a bed.
Mhm.
This I'm
Oh,
in a
wow. Oh,
compartment.
snap.
No, with a little sink
Oh, that's awesome.
and lying in bed, I open the window, I'm going along, it's like the
Oh,
shoreline, it's
man,
going along the south coast, the
that's
Bristol
amazing.
Channel.
Uh-huh.
Um, Delightful, and the price was it saved me money to do that.
Mm. Right, and I
Uh,
think, like, if you did the same thing here in America, like, if you got, like, maybe a long distance
yeah,
Amtrak, it would
yeah.
not save you time or money.
Right, right. So, yeah, and I actually arrived in Penzance, beautiful spring day, breathtaking day, and I was hours earlier than I would have been on
Oh,
the
that's
previous
great.
train, so I had time to go and have a cream tea
Love
and
it.
stuff before meeting the person I was gonna interview. So
Mhm,
that was special, and another thing that was with time, but much more recently, I went over and I said, "I'm not gonna rent a car. I'm gonna see if I can make all my journeys
mhm,
by train." And I had to go really all over the place. I had to go out to the Cotswolds, and then I went down to south of London, and then I was staying in London, I had to go anyway, all over the South, sort of in the South, but a lot of different journeys. And
mhm,
I'll tell you, it was like clockwork.
mhm,
The British trains, I've been on delayed trains, there's all sorts of, they have their own problems, especially since they've been privatized. But wow! And the short journeys were very inexpensive,
mhm,
very I mean, it was a huge savings. It was easy to buy a ticket, and I was pretty flexible too. I'd say "Oh, no, I'm not gonna go back into London. I'll go see if I can go straight to Guildford from Cirencester or wherever." And I took a train. I had to change once on these little trains.
mhm,
It was quite remarkable. So sometimes you hear, because I'll read stories in the press about how the trains are not what they used to be. And that is in some ways true. But
mhm.
boy, it was very easy. to do, and I moved around a lot, and I moved around fast.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was
so
convenient,
that
and it's like you said, like, you were able to do it comfortably, cheaply without a car. It was not
yeah,
really a huge impediment not to have a car with you.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, so it was really great.
Mhm.
Uh,
And, like,
and this is
so I
where
have
having things like
oh, yeah.
Uber around, then,
Right.
you know, I mean, I could walk to some places, but often if then something like Uber becomes this great add-on
Mhm.
to public transport.
Definitely. I think
Yeah.
Uber provides that, like, last mile sort of service that in America that I think in other countries, often buses kind of work, and in some good public
Mm,
transit cities in America, you can get, like, a bus or something like that for. Uber, I think, especially is definitely a huge boon to, like, public transportation. Because had I not been able to get my friend Colby to come pick me up out in suburban Boston, I would have taken an Uber, but it would have been probably affordable. But what I wanna know is, like, you've ridden the train in a bunch of different countries.
mhm.
Are there any, like, sort of train norms or, like, sort of cultural stuff that you notice, like, oh, well, like, on an English train, everybody says hello when they sit down, but on a French train, nobody I don't know, I'm just, like, for an example, do you like, any like, quirks?
No one in England, traditionally, no. In public,
Okay.
you do not speak to other people. The funniest thing I ever saw on a British train was was the commute it was a commuter train, clearly. I mean, I was going out to Oxford from London for the weekend, and and this man discovers someone he knows sitting back, and I'm in the regular second class, and this and says, "Oh, hello," it's obviously a neighbor, and this woman gets in so flurried because she's embarrassed not to be in first class. "Oh, well, and he I guess he wasn't wandering through second, or maybe they were both in the second, and they were both like, they were acting like they were really slumming.
Wow, that is so funny, just like, "Oh, I
And
I never I never do this, I just saw it." That's funny. What are you doing here?
it was one of the few times I've heard people, like, only because they already knew each other, but then they were both so embarrassed.
That is funny.
So, no, the British are not talkative. I understand Southern Europeans are. Certainly, my experience in France was not a lot of chat. And in China, interestingly, I have people talk to me in China, but that's because I'm a foreigner and
Mhm,
they're interested. And
yeah.
actually, when I was in China just recently, I ended up the man sitting next to me was, I think, the only other foreigner on the train, but he was Asian,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize he was foreign, but he was a Chinese, ethnically Chinese, but from Singapore,
Oh, okay.
and spoke English, and so I don't know if they'd seated us together on purpose, but you know, he wanted to have a conversation,
Yeah.
and, and I've told this story about having an African
Mhm.
talk to me on the train from Hong Kong to Guangzhou many years ago, who just was so excited to meet an American.
Oh, wow.
Um, but the thing I regret about that trip is that in those days they had carts of just like a street cart, like steaming chicken, like on
Oh, wow.
smelling really good, but it was like totally like street food on this metal cart. And I was too shy to buy any, even though it
Oh,
smelled
yeah.
really great. Cause
Oh,
I was like,
man.
I'm going to spill it all over myself. And I don't know how to ask
Understandable.
for it.
When you're in a new spot, you don't like yeah, you don't want
Um,
too much going on, but, oh, man, well,
right.
next time.
Uh, right. And now there's total food service on the Chinese trains. The
Mhm.
Chinese trains, I'll tell you, you stand on the platform, your ticket tells you where you stand to get on the right car. It is so orderly, and these fast trains, the amazing thing to me about a train that will go it's a high-speed train, but they still make a fair number of stops. I had understood reading about these things in America is that, you need, because obviously slowing down for a stop, this is true on any train, it takes time and it
Mhm.
makes the whole trip longer. So you try to, it's like when you lay out a new train line, you try to avoid curves. And in fact, to get, if the Berkshire line, if they apparently, I guess they won't do this now because they've upgraded the track where it stands in Massachusetts. But if you have the opportunity and have the right of way, shaving off any little bit of a curve
Mhm.
that you can. But these Chinese trains and the infrastructure is just remarkable. It's pristine. Everything is very clean, not clean to Japanese standard, but
Mm.
very clean, certainly by comparison to anything we're familiar with. There's not all that, old rail ties lying around. And I mean, one of the things that bothers me with American train lines is how much junk there is that's been left by the train, the engineers who and the maintenance people. There's just always piles of crap that they and garbage and plastic bags and wrapping for things
Mhm.
lying around, and that is not what you see in China. The seats are extremely comfortable, and the food carts, it's just assumed that you're going to want to buy
Mhm.
food. And in fact, clearly people were ordering their meals in advance, like as you would on an airplane, because
Oh,
there were
wow.
there were there were staff delivering
Oh,
actual
wow. That is
lunches.
so
Yeah,
impressive. Yeah,
yeah,
America, you got some work to do. I'm looking out
yeah.
my window now and watching the Amtrak go by because I love my apartment because I get to see the trains
Uh-huh.
on the New Haven line go, and I'm looking at them, and they are beautiful by 1980s standards for sure, 1970s, I think,
Exactly.
you know? Just the thought of being able to get on a train and maybe use an app to be like, "Oh, I already ordered my chicken salad."
Yeah, yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, very, very sleek, very orderly, and, I will in the notes, I will put some photographs. It going to a train station in China is really very similar to going to an airport here. And
Mhm.
this is one of the things they're working on in Europe, which is now Europe has the advantage. We will admit that Europe has the advantage of just plain being smaller than the United
Mhm.
States. But China is very big. It's got almost exactly the same area as the United States. And America is a rich country. It's not like we can complain that we just don't have the money to do things, to build things, to have
Mhm.
good infrastructure. So that's what makes it embarrassing. It's one thing if you go to a developing country and things are a little shabby and they're, they face economic challenges that we don't
Sure.
face. But for anyone who has the chance to ride a train in Asia, I think it does make one, it's both thrilling and really frustrating to not
Yeah.
have that here. The first high-speed train I ever took was in Japan in 2001 because we stopped in Tokyo just overnight. No, it was on our way back from China. We'd we went to Japan after our trip. We'd stopped briefly on the way over to China, our first trip to China and Kazakhstan.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, wow.
but then we flew back. We went to Tokyo, and then we're going down to Kyoto for a few days, which is
Mhm.
a very beautiful ancient town. And so our friends had, and the Chinese always meet you at the station, by the way.
Hmm.
They feel that's absolutely crucial to hospitality, to meet people at the airport or station. And so we were being met, so we were given instructions about getting on the train. And it was not just fast, it was beautiful and pristine the way things are in Japan. And I remember when we got off to meet our friends, there was a crew that came on the train and was just wiping down all the seat the armrests.
Mhm.
So when you talk about the windows being grubby,
Yeah,
there's
and I mean, no shade to Hartford, I'm sure that, there's issues of staffing and, like, pay and stuff like that, but like you said, we're a rich country, and it's like you said, like, it's almost probably melancholy in a way to ride the trains in countries that really prioritize that kind of experience for trains, where trains
Yeah.
are not just, you know, something that people who can't afford a car have to take. It's
Right.
it's like
And
it's supposed to be nice.
and that's really what we'd like to convey, and the why we're talking about this on Train Time is because
Mhm,
a lot of Americans don't haven't had the opportunity to ride trains elsewhere. And so I'm hoping that we can, if we have in various ways can help you imagine what trains might be like and how absolutely wonderful it can be to have trains available to take you on, whether it's not just for commuting, but for having, going on holiday, going to see friends, that it becomes something that you can rely on as a way to get around very comfortably and to feel good about,
mhm,
if we're serious about dealing with the climate crisis, we need to change the way we get around. But we all want these connections.
mhm,
You wanna see your friends. I mean, how great is it that it's possible to see your friends and hang out
mhm.
without
Uh,
having to drive?
and for you, to work and not just to go to and from, an office, but to be like, I'm going to meet this person for, I want to talk to them about some project that I'm working on. Just being able to connect with people socially, professionally, and to be able to do it in a way that's sustainable, but also affordable and
Yeah,
also pleasant is like, I think part of why we feel so strongly
yeah.
about this, what we
And
want.
and s Yeah, that trip when I was bopping around the south of England to see, catch up with people. The
Hmm.
train ride was pleasant because I mean, I got to look around, beautiful countryside, it was a lovely time of year, and so that it made the trip a pleasure,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
certainly much better than having to drive and, find my way around and also to pay for the rental car and find parking and all that. No, it was a far better experience. So
Yeah.
that's what we're working towards. That's what
Uh-huh.
we're talking about here.
Yeah, definitely. If you had to rank your country's experience, I mean, I don't wanna put any countries on blast, but
Uh-huh.
would you be like, I don't know, England kinda beats out for views, but China for convenience and, accessibility? Are there any trains that you think were the best, or you would say were your favorite?
Well, my absolute favorite, I love the sleeper cars. There's nothing
Mhm.
like waking up on a train and
Yeah,
looking out
definitely.
and seeing the Scottish hills or the whatever.
Oh,
I mean,
beautiful.
that's the best. But the coolest one, the sort of most surprising one is I can't even remember where I was going, but I had to transfer at this station and in England, and I was kind of cutting across country. So I had to transfer, and I'm waiting on the platform, and this little car, this little red just one single carriage rolls up, and I realized that's my train, and it's just this little thing,
Yeah.
and it sort of rolls up, and, they announce it or run it on the board, and I get on, and then it just goes the other way and goes back, and it was so practical, and it was
Uh,
cute too. It
yeah,
wasn't
charming.
it's this cute little red car, and
Is this one car for me? Okay.
so that was really fun. The thing in China that's really thrilling is the sense that it's substituting for air travel.
Mm,
That which is really important, and I was startled a few years back when I went from Beijing to Guangzhou, which is like going to Chicago, Washington to Chicago, something like that, and the plane was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And
mhm.
so I was really late for the dinner that I was being, welcome dinner. And my friend said, "Why didn't you take the train?" I was like, "The train?" I just,
Really?
because it was quite a distance. I
Mhm,
mean, you organize yourself a bit differently. But
mhm.
the Chinese have realized the trains are fast enough. And if you get a sleeper, so just weighing things out, if there's a hotel involved, and in terms of the ease of getting on a train compared to the whole airport ordeal, far fewer delays because, you're on the ground. Trains actually largely can keep to a schedule. They're
Mhm.
not there's not as much interference as there is often with planes. And it's just more practical, and so they have a better understanding of it as a substitute, as an alternative to flying,
Mhm.
and because it's this incredibly modern high-speed system that they can handle, they they think about it in terms of longer routes, which I think is really applicable to the United States.
Mhm.
If if, it's their approach to it is so much more successful than anything in high-speed rail here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the order of magnitude is not,
I mean,
e
and what like in America, like, in the same 20 years that China has built this massive rail network, like we have California high speed rail, maybe we'll have service between Bakersfield and Sacramento in 2035. And that's no shade. I'm all for the project, but it's definitely like, gosh, darn it. It's like,
Yeah,
come on. We are the home
yeah.
of the Transcontinental Railroad. We built that back in like 1867 or whatever it was.
So we have some work to do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Uh, Great to talk to you about that, and we'll talk soon. Thanks for joining me at Train Time. Don't forget to subscribe. Send me your suggestions for future shows. And visit our YouTube channel, Train Campaign, for some great interviews and amazing historical footage, including a bit from the documentary The Last Train to Pittsfield, filmed in 1971.